Jan Ozer here. I'm here today with Michel Roofthooft, who is Senior Director of Engineering at Dolby. And we're here talking about how server-guided ad insertion found its way into Dolby OptiView. Thanks for joining me, Michel.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jan. Pretty excited to have this conversation today.
My pleasure. So before we dive into the server-guided ad insertion component, why don't you talk a little bit about what Dolby OptiView is?
Sure, Dolby OptiView is pretty recent in the industry. It's actually a suite of products designed at live streaming, at mostly in the sports sector, and it's actually combining three best-of-breed products: the player, formerly known as TO Player, streaming, and ads. All best of breed in their own segment, but also better together or working seamlessly together to create the best possible engaging user experience.
So, one of the things that's kind of attractive about this whole concept of the story is the fact that server-guided ad insertion was included in Dolby OptiView because of client requests. Can you tell us about that? Can you maybe move to the next slide and we'll look at what the clients were looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is actually the interesting about this journey that for us started 2 or maybe it's already 3 years ago, that we started to look from the player perspective, but mostly from being with our player solution with customers and seeing in real life a couple of the challenges that they are having. Challenges that go from smart TVs having difficulties with transitioning between the content and the advertisement, but also from requests of customers on how do we do this at low latency, or even a step further, how do we do this across all of the different platforms in a personalized way, but also at low latency. And that actually made us think, how can we do this better? Is there another way to do the ad insertion?
Okay, so let's review the traditional methods of ad insertion. I think that's on the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think people are pretty familiar with a couple of them. If I look at what we have here, and it's actually the evolution that you also see in the industry, where and that you see on the slide, people moved from client side to server side over to right now more and more engaging into the server guided aspect of ad insertion.
Okay. So walk us through the some of the line items that you have. So you get ad insertion by the video player with client side, and that moves to the server with server side, and then server guided. It's hybrid player and server. Explain how that works.
Yeah, so what we see today is that client side is still present, mostly on VOD content with our customers, where they use it for pre-rolls mostly today, and where actually everything is done on the client. It's in the wording, and it's the client who is in the full control of doing the insertion, requesting for the break, triggering the decisioning, and getting to an accurate splicing. Where over time, many of the industry, and certainly on live streaming today, people moved to the server side of it, where actually all of that happens on the server side. So you deliver to your video player or to your devices out there a ready-made stream which has already the ads stitched into the stream. So the client devices are just playing the stream with the ads already inserted, which gives you a very high platform coverage, but you lose a big perspective of the client, where you lose control over the experience, but where you also lose a big part of the personalization that you are able to do on client side. And
So,
then
so
later,
walk us. What drove that transition? So we started with client side, that was first, and then we moved towards server side. What was driving the move from client side to server side?
much of that drive comes from the cross-platform becoming stable stakes. Everybody has a Netflix app on their TVs, and where, for example, Netflix is, you also need to be with your application. That's a trend in the industry you've seen over the last few years that everybody recognizes. And of course, doing this cross-platform, getting on every platform, having presence, and having your feature there and wanting to monetize your streams comes with challenges. So people naturally adopted server side, where you do have less logic on the client side to handle, and it is a faster way. I always call it like it's the big cannon to shoot once and you hit a lot of platforms with it. But it's certainly not a perfect solution.
So you talked a moment ago about what you lose on the personalization side. Go into that with server side.
Well, there is certainly on the server side over the time and over the years, there is a lot of development being happened to try to bring the personalization back into it. But if you just look at the concept, you move the stitching to the server side, you move the decisioning to the server side, which actually also means that your server is doing that without really knowing what the player is, who the viewer is who is watching that video player. So you lose a lot of data from the device, data from the user, or also what he was watching and what he's watching right now. You all lose those elements, and you can try to bring that metadata to the server, which adds complexity, which makes scalability more challenging. But that's never going to be fully like it was with client side. So that's a bit where you see that server side is at today.
If you have server side and you have complete personalization, does that mean the server has to stitch individual ads into every stream to deliver to the individual viewers?
Yeah, correct. So if you want to personalize to the maximum, it actually indeed means that every viewer that tunes in to your stream, you need to give that individual user its own experience, its own ads. And I'm saying its own experience. It's already complicating giving you the ads that are relevant for you. But if you then combine that, if you want to do new experiences like an L shape, a double box, etc., you need to do all of that on the server side, and you all need to do that on an individual basis. That becomes pretty complex.
So that's the scalability angle. And going to server guided, how does that work? You're going to go into it a little bit further as we move on, but tell us at a really high level how it works.
Well, the idea of server-guided ad insertion is actually that you leverage the power of the clients. And coming from a player angle, we very well appreciate the scale that all of your clients bring. So where server-guided comes in is actually making the hybrid between the two models, client side and server side, where you keep the items where the server is good at, in making sure that whatever is being served to the client is in the most optimal way, prepared and in a ready shape to use. But you keep the actual action, you keep the actual insertion, and you keep the actual decisioning call, initiating all of this on the player side, on the client side, where it naturally belongs, which gives you scalability of all your clients. You can never match that in any data center. And it also gives you, by harvesting the capabilities that a server does bring, you also get cross-platform support. So you get actually the best of the both worlds.
Okay, so scalability, it's easy to see why it's more scalable than server side because you don't have that stitching burden. When you talk about cross-platform support, one of the negatives of client side was that it was challenging to support multiple platforms. Why is server-guided easier to support multiple platforms than client side?
I think it's actually a pretty easy answer. In the word client side, there's client, meaning you do everything on the client. Nothing is pre-prepared for you, nothing is optimized for you on the client side, so you need to get to the best experience with what you get. You need to make the best out of it. Server guided is different. With server guided, you make sure that you do the break signaling in a way that the player, the client, has all data up front and ahead of time to manage the break, do the decisioning, handle the actual insertion. But also you make sure that the player gets an ad break which is fully optimized for the content that you're playing. So the player doesn't have to worry about, am I gonna get a progressive MP4? Am I gonna get an HLS ad back? Am I gonna get a low res ad back? Am I gonna get a 4K ad? Doesn't have to worry about that. He's gonna get something back that he's gonna be able to optimal stitch into the stream. That makes the cross-platform aspect, together of course with having a player that is available cross-platform and hardened for years already, makes it easier to get there.
Okay, so a couple of the criticisms of client side were ad blocking, which I guess isn't such a problem on TV sets, which is primarily where who premium content providers are serving. But how does server-guided avoid the ad blocker problem, or at least minimize it?
Well, so there is indeed definitely ad blockers were one of the reasons to go from client side to server side. While I typically also argue you can block with client side and server side, both with them, you can block actually still the impression pings, meaning the things that actually signal back to the advertiser, hey, this user watched the ads and where you're getting paid on, those are still easily blockable with both server side as with client side. Nevertheless, server guided brings a part of the responsibility to the client, so the vulnerability went up. Definitely on web devices, on desktop devices, like you say, CTVs is a lot harder. But there are also techniques to do so. If you bring, for example, your ads and content already on the same domain as where you are serving them from, that already becomes a lot harder. Second of all, what we also see with customers is that customers want to know and they want to take a business decision on, do we want to prevent an ad blocker and do we want to show a promo to say, hey, for a better experience, disable your ad blocker? Or do you still want to show promos instead of the ads, for example? So there are many techniques. It's actually here also that the client can give the information, there is an ad blocker present, what do you want to do? But also there are techniques to make it a bit harder for the ad blockers.
Okay. And the other criticism of client side was interruptions between the ad stream and the program stream. And I guess by preconditioning, you talked about a few minutes ago, you can kind of make sure there's not a big adjustment between those two streams.
Yeah, correct. So we actually had this week in the lab a few use cases of customers who were doing client side and who were facing a spinner of 3 to 4 to 5 seconds. And they came also to us in asking like, hey, how can we do better? How can we prevent that? There are ways to optimize for that. But getting that fully seamless is a very challenging task, nevertheless. With server guided, in making sure that your codecs match, your timescale match, your frame rate matches, etc., you make it a lot easier to use the same video decoder and get to a very seamless experience, even on the older and the more challenging big screen smart TVs.
Okay. Does that minimize the player requirements as well? You can operate smoothly on a low CPU type smart TV or dongle?
Certainly, because the client does not have to do a lot of parsing. It's a bit what I said earlier, like you make sure that the player has the optimal toolbox to create that best experience. You make sure that it knows ahead of time a break is coming and to what properties it needs to be dealt with. You also serve the ad back in a way that the player, in a good way, can insert it. So it makes it for the player a lot more lightweight. Nevertheless, the player still needs to have the right logic to, on a smart TV, avoid that you're starting to use multiple video decoders, etc. So there is still some complexity. But a lot of parsing, like if you need to start parsing a vast file on a client, etc., all of that went away and became a lot more lightweight with the server-guided approach.
Good. I think we've covered this slide. Let's move to the next.
We should dive a little bit more into the details with this one.
Okay, so again, going back to the narrative, customers were coming to you with pain points. Talk about the pain point that you're describing here.
Well, if people ask me like what is server-guided ad insertion in one sentence, I always like what's on the slide here. It's just more logical. It's more logical how the responsibilities have been distributed, and what we've been talking about earlier, where it started for us, is actually listening to very strong partners in the ad industry. So working with Google very intensively made us very much understand like what are the possibilities, how does it work today, and how can we improve that. And what we are displaying here on the slide is actually what we said earlier. So on the server is conditioning the manifest for the client with all the break information to handle. It's a manifest which is still completely anonymous, so meaning it can be cached by the CDN, which gives you a lot of the scalability out of the box. And it's actually the player that will do the splicing and the personalization. And that is the redistribution compared to SSAI. You put that responsibility of stitching and personalizing on the client side. But you still also on the server side keep the ready-made ad break. So the server is not just going to return you a response like, hey, here you find your ads. No, the server is returning you a fully playable ad break. So you can actually compare it with a second live stream that is being returned by the server, which the player just needs to stitch into the existing experience.
Okay. You mentioned the Google Ad Manager. How many different ad managers can OptiView work with at this point?
Well, we started off with a very strong partnership with Google, and we are very much pre-integrated with their solution today. We even have developed together hybrid workflows where we are able to really get the best of the both worlds, do a server guided, but also do a server side if it would be really necessary. We've also been developing lately with some pilot customers that we are able to integrate with any fast compliant ad server, and that we will actually still make sure that the right conditioning of the break is happening before the player. And that is something that we're also actively with some pilot customers working on today.
So talk to me about, personalization in general. What were you hearing from your customers?
What we were hearing from our customers is mostly that they were looking for a way to, first of all, get insights into the experiences. Maybe a little bit of a different answer, but get more insights into. Customers were looking for, first of all, a very good experience in their content, like that needs to have a high quality of experience score, but now also want to have the same quality of experience into their ads. Meaning you want to get insights on how good is the ad playing without any buffering at the right quality, a seamless experience. Next to that, customers are also looking for a higher degree of personalization, making sure that the ads that are being served to you as a client are relevant to you, because that will get you a higher CPM. That's also what the advertisers want, but also giving you relevant ads that want to watch is maybe a big word, but that are relevant to you. You will easily stay connected to the stream, and you will less likely tune away. So that's a very big ask of the clients that we've been seeing in this project.
What degree of personalization do you see applying in the field at this point?
You see actually that with doing server-guided ad insertions, customers really discover that the power of personalization gets unlocked, where previously they didn't have access to it. Right now, you see that they start exploring the possibilities of that. That can be to go to very localized ads, to use it, for example, in use cases where a local brand is sponsoring a local sports game, for example, that is being streamed, or that they are applying personalization into new ad formats, for example, in making sure that creating an experience where you throw in an ad or even another piece of content in a way that you keep the stream that you're playing engaging with the customer, and that you keep the customer connected to it, so that you really drive a relevant experience.
So what, as a practical matter, what percentage of ads are personalized are you thinking, and where are you today, and where do you think it's going to end up in 6 to 12 months?
To answer that, you really need to look at where we are coming from and where we are going to as an industry. I think what we're seeing with customers where we start off, like we're talking a lot about personalization right now, but one of the other bigger benefits of SGAI is the efficiency gains it brings, new ad formats it brings. But on the personalization front, where you start off, you actually see that a lot of the ads are the same that are being served. It's a very limited pool, 40, 50 ads, maybe even for the bigger brands that are continuously being cycled, that are continuously getting through. The reason for that is actually and that actually proves that today the capabilities to personalize are rather limited. Once we are longer in a project with customers, you do see the number of permutations of those ads start to grow, and you start to see the ad sales people start to discover the capabilities and start selling on those. In combination with a new format like an L shape or just a regular replace. But actually that's still growing. So I find it very difficult to answer that with a percentage right now.
So what were you responding to here?
I think here the message is that by bringing the insertion client side, you get more insights on the experience. So a bit what I talked about earlier, you get quality of experience metrics from the client, like am I seeing buffering, am I looking at the right quality, but you also get the pings from client side. So that gives you more insight as an advertiser. Is the ad actually watched by the viewer? Which also leads to advertisers having the willingness to pay more for the ad space that you're offering.
So it's kind of a two-way street, right? The players delivering data to the publisher for which they can personalize the ads, and you're also getting back a much better data set when it comes to the actual viewing of the ads. So I guess there's two aspects to it: personalization and the analytical data.
Yeah, and the viewability insights. It gives you as an advertiser the insights on, is the ad actually being watched, and do I get a guarantee that the viewer that I want to reach is the right viewer, and did he completely watch the ad, and didn't he tune away, for example, or moved the playback to a secondary window and was actually not really watching the ad or no longer engaged with it. That's one. Second, as a content provider, it also makes sure that you can measure the viewer experience. Ensure that on the transition you go into an ad, that it's not stuttering, ensuring that you're not playing at a low quality, which is bad for the content provider, but also for the advertiser. Because what you see is that a lower quality of the ad is typically also perceived as a lower value of the brand that is being advertised. So by getting these insights, it actually also enriches for both the content provider and for the advertiser the gains they get out of it.
How does that compare to, say, server-sided ad insertion? What data do you get back on the viewability of the ads and the ad experience?
Well, on server side, it's a bit the same story earlier around personalization. You can offload a lot of metadata from the client to the server. That is all going to be very bespoke development that you're doing, but also is going to be something you need to manage for all your viewers individually. This is just more logic. When you do it on the client side, like with server guided, the data is there. That is the source of the data. So that should also be the source that is reporting it, and will also be the source that is being trusted by the advertisers. The insights on the quality of experience, those you can only get if you do it on the client side. You can only report accurately on the transition of a content to an ad break and vice versa to your QoE system. You can only do that on the client side in the proper way, in the right way.
Okay, and you're talking about, at this point, data sharing with some of the quality of experience vendors like Conviva, NPA, and Mux. Is that baked in, or is that something extra that clients have to do?
That is something that is baked in today. I think over the years, these integration with the partners has grown. All of them have the ability to track this data, do something with that data. So actually that is completely built in today, and we can actually answer that comes out of the box today.
Okay, but what do you do to manage low latency in the SGAI architecture?
Yeah, that's it's actually one of the pillars or one of the drivers for us coming to the conclusion like server-guided ad insertion was the way to go. That was low latency, because on the server side, the moment you need to serve out your manifest, you need to serve out your stream, you need to have your ads ready. So you need to have your decisioning call done. All of those things, they take time, build up latency, but also build up join time. If you talk about low latency, those are things you cannot have. Where then SGAI comes in is by making sure that you signal to the client the break when it needs to happen pretty accurately. You first of all reduce the waste, but you also make sure that the player can already preload the ad, can ahead of time trigger the decisioning, make sure it has the ad content ready to go, and at the right moment, at the right frame, even at low latency, switch over to the ad break, and even in a very seamless experience. So that's something which on our end was a very big driver to go to SGAI, and something that we also optimized for in doing this at scale at low latency.
So let's put numbers to the theory. I mean, what type of latency are we talking about? I mean, with normal delivery, I guess I can get anywhere from, normal delivery is in the 30-second range. How low can you go with, the type of personalized ad experience you're talking about with server-guided ad insertion? And what architecture are we talking about? Is that low latency HLS or Dash or any architecture?
Today we do this with any architecture, whether you do Dash, LL Dash, HLS, LL HLS, if you do HESP, if you do WebRTC, we can do it on any streaming protocol today. And that actually already unveils a little bit the type of latencies that I'm talking about. We are easily doing this at scale at a broadcast latency of 8 to 10 seconds, easily, with all the personalization and what you need. We're also doing this at lower latencies, from the 2 to the 5 second range is perfectly possible. You do come, the lower you go in latency, you always also need to take into account the more time you give to the decisioning of your ad break, the better ads you're going to be returned. So when you reduce latency, the technology all allows that, but you do need to make sure that if you go lower in latencies, and then I'm talking about the 2, 5 second or even lower range, you need to make sure that you are able to trigger the decisioning call ahead of time or in time to make sure that you still get a very rich decisioning back. But from a latency perspective, we can cover any scale right now, or any of the scala of latencies that are out there.
What are your customers asking for in terms of latency? I know shorter is always better, but what do they think is a good mix between the feature set you just described and the user experience?
Where we see that this server-guided ad insertion gets a lot of traction right now is in getting to a broadcast-like experience. A broadcast-like experience of bringing everybody at the same latency point, so synchronized playback across all of your viewers. And then you're talking about also higher quality, higher stability. So then I would say today that is the 8 to 10 second range is where we see a lot of customers right now having interest here. But of course, adopting it and having the ability to tune down latency later on, and not having to compromise on the feature set is something that we see in the next phase that happens with the clients that we are engaging with.
What are we responding to here? What were the customers asking for?
Well, the customers were asking for actually to a more efficient ad insertion technology. That comes in two ways. So first of all, in having the ability to more accurately and more last minute, let's call it maybe for simplicity, schedule a break. More control over when do I insert a break. A typical example is you have something that happens in the game and you want to respond to that very quickly, or you have something in the stream which you want to respond to very quickly, show an ad that is relevant, or cover up what is ongoing, for example. Secondly, also getting a more efficient ad insertion technology in there that only starts calling out for ads when you know that the ads are going to be played, so that you are not reserving precious ad inventory for users that maybe never scroll back in your DVR window, or maybe already moved away from your stream because they're just maybe browsing through the interface and seeing all the tiles pop up, but they're actually never going to consume an ad. So two aspects, more flexibility, but also less waste in the technology, in the workflow.
So tell us about these results. Specifically, what can you tell us about the client? And obviously don't name names, but what type of client, what type of ads, what type of content?
Well, yeah, this was super exciting. So developing together with clients, that gave us a couple of challenges that actually speak to what we were talking about earlier. How can we do this at scale? How can we get to a more flexible solution? How can we personalize more? How can we get to a more stable solution? So building out a solution with them, and actually the conditions for these results were the same application, the same content, which was tier 1 sports, tier 1 live sports, same content, same app, same viewers, and a true A/B test between, on one hand, the existing SSAI stack, and on the other hand, SGAI replacing that stack. And we came to these exciting numbers. So we saw, just by replacing the ad insertion technology and nothing else, an incredible increase of more than 70% on the eCPM for the ads. And that was actually supported by the 3 pillars that you see underneath. First of all, better viewability tracking, which we spoke about earlier. Client telling the advertiser, yes, the viewer is watching and he's engaged with the content, and we can guarantee you that the ad is really being consumed. Better fill rates, so making sure that the ads that are actually being auctioned are also actually being inserted and being used in the stream. So your most valuable ads are being used and are not just being reserved and never played. And then lastly, also unlocking programmatic revenue. So instead of only going to a direct sold inventory, also unlocking an open auction by getting better signals. And what I mean with that is offloading more precise data from the client and from the viewer. So the people on the open auction, the advertisers, know actually what they're bidding on, which also results to more ads, but also a better CPM out of programmatic. The nice thing is these are results that we got throughout the rollout with the customer, where we've been live already for more than a year right now, getting to these results. We recently had a reiteration of this, and we actually saw that fill rates were not up with 130%, but were actually up with, 390% compared to the old system. So the efficiency gains, the personalization, etc., the theory is really proven in practice, which is very exciting.
This doesn't even consider the cost side, right? I mean, we talked about why server-sided ad insertion is more expensive. We talked about the lack of scalability, which translates to cost. I mean, this is only looking at the revenue side. Talk about the cost side for a second.
Well, that is where we come back to appreciating the clients. Having all of your client devices out there, that gives you actually massive scale. So if you use those clients, you can eliminate a big part of your infrastructure cost. Like you said earlier, Jan, you don't need to track every individual viewer, every individual session, personalize for every individual. No, you're doing that on the client side, so you don't need any infrastructure for that. But what we've also seen, and that's typically more hidden in the cost aspect, but also in the agility of a team, that is your stitcher is a central component which handles a lot of complexity, handles a lot of scale, and typically people don't try or don't dare to touch that. Certainly not in tier 1 sports use case that you see here. So that is also a big cost in maintaining that, testing that, keeping that infrastructure, but also holds you back in innovating and in the agility that you do need in today's streaming environment.
I don't guess the customer wanted to go back to server-sided ad insertion, huh?
No, not at all, not at all. since this growing in number of platforms and also growing in the number of use cases. So the customer definitely won't go back, not at all.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, that's another advantage that you get from doing it on the client side. On the client, it's very easy to create a richer experience. So we all know that the ad that takes over the full screen, of course, that's still possible, but this also unlocks you, and you see it in the animations, to do an L bar. That can be an L bar with an ad in the video feed, but it can also be an L bar on the content that continues, or a double box where you show the content, where you keep your viewer still engaged with that content, maybe during a dull moment or so, but you also show an ad next to it, which is very precious for an advertiser because he can be linked with, for example, a certain element in the game or in the action that is happening. And over the time, we started off with a few ad formats. Right now, we also see customers doing a simple overlay, a simple personalized image overlay, to in a very non-intrusive way still bring advertisement into the experience, into the video feed.
What about these ads are unique to SGAI? I mean, can I do all this with server side or client side, or are they, as I'm inferring, unique to server guided?
The unique thing that you see here is it's not only these experiences that you create, because we all seen these double boxes and L shapes in the production, but then they are the same for everybody. Here with server guided, what makes it truly unique is these are personalized to you as a viewer. Up until the individual viewer, these are personalized. Yes, you can also do this with client-side ad insertion, because there also you have the control on the client, but you do need to, in that case, do the development on all of your different platforms, maintain all of that. But next to that, if you want to create a double box of any of these experiences that you have here, and you cannot offer a seamless experience, then a lot of the nice experience already goes away. Imagine that you do a double box and the ad shows a spinner because you're not getting the ad back in the right format for your video feed. Probably you crashed the party already of showing a double box.
Okay, got it. Let's go to the next.
This is the first thing that some of the customers told us. That is, on one hand, with the double box, the realization like, hey, I can now monetize content which I couldn't before, because I can now put in an ad, but I'm not sure that I can put in an ad, but I'm certain that the viewers can still watch the content, so I can just do that. But also the trigger that customers immediately say, this is actually an experience that I can create, and that doesn't have to be an ad. That can perfectly be a highlight, that can be a replay, that can be a clip of another game that ensures that your viewer stays on your platform and stays watching at your stream. So not just advertisement, but actually any content, any clip can be inserted with the same technology, with the same mechanics, on all the platforms that you're serving.
Okay, so what we're seeing here is the viewer is given an option to play instant replay on the right within the context of the Dolby OptiView system.
Yeah, correct. And that can actually be editorially triggered. So you can actually, from a production side, say when you detect, okay, there is something happening in the game, it's not really exciting right now, like there is a change of players, or there is some review happening, etc. You can trigger from the server side and say, look, I want to make sure that I show something, that I keep every viewer connected to the experience. And then you can show a highlight of your favorite team. You can show a replay that happened earlier during the game, because this can also happen personalized in this case.
So how widely used is this experiences versus advertisements?
it's a bit like you asked earlier around personalization. You see people realizing this and gradually adopting. It's a bit the same like with the double box being able to monetize content you couldn't before. You see that when we start on a project, the ideas start to flow and our customers start using this. So we do see our customers right now already using the double boxes, for example, to show promos. You have a free tier and you want to draw the customers into a subscription tier, then you actually show a highlight or you show a promo of what could that be. But actually the use cases are endless, so we see a lot of different, and typically in a co-creation with customers building on this. The options are endless.
This is kind of a summary slide. You want to walk us through it?
It's kind of a summary slide, but hidden in the summary slide is actually a big trigger for us to start working on server-guided ad insertion. These are actually a number of challenges that one of our customers gave us at the start of all of this. Told us like, hey, I need to personalize at scale. I want to do this in low latency. I want to get a richer experience. I want to control better which ads are being placed where in the break. I want to make sure that there is less waste in my system, and I want more flexibility. So I'm now summing them up, but that was literally the shopping list or the challenge list that one of our customers gave us, and we started thinking together with partners like, okay, what do we have, together with the ideas we already had on issues we saw with the player at customers, the low latency front, and this actually was for us the birthplace of SGAI. These challenges, the answer for that was naturally, okay, we need a hybrid. Oh wait, that hybrid actually is called SGAI. Let's bring those pieces together. And yeah, that brought where we are today. So get a client-side control over the experience with a pre-prepared manifest, which is fully cacheable in the back end, but with an individual aspect to it that allows you to personalize, being able to naturally get the beacons and get the data, the signals from the client. Of course, you're doing it on the client side, but also leveraging functionality that, for example, already existed on Google side, which they call pod serving, which is actually making sure that you just get one full playable preconditioned ad break for the player to play, and bringing that all together made the system that we're talking about today. And then when you bring that to the client, and this is a true story, through a hackathon, etc., you start engineers, and even in hackathons together with customers, you start people to think, I can build new things with that. And that was actually the birth of doing L shapes and double boxes, etc. And the moment you show it to customers what is possible, it really goes fast, and you really get into unlocking all of the potential of what this brings. And nice thing is we've been doing it, we've first been building it and thinking of it, and now we've been already doing it for more than a year in production, and obviously getting some battle scars out of it, but also seeing the results that the theory truly pays out and it's truly working.
What's the standardization aspect? I mean, I feel like CSAI and SSAI are fairly well standardized, which means no vendor lock-in and a lot of, it simplifies things on the implementation side. Where is SGAI today, and where is it going to end up on the standardization scale?
So there is a lot going on around standardization, and you do, if you come at the conferences and at the trade shows, etc., there's a lot of buzz around SGAI. Same is with standardization, so that is happening right now, but we also said when we started on this more than a year ago, when standardization was not that high, we're not going to wait for that. We're going to get real production feedback and work with that and adjust on that. And that also made that what we build today already exceeds where the standards are going right now. It exceeds it in a way that we move to a much more real-time way in signaling the breaks to the player, which creates much more flexibility to, for example, early end a break or switch over to another break while playing one. But also led us already to right now not wait for standardization in Dash or in other protocols to happen, but to already put what we've built on top of it so that we're able to today already offer this to customers and work with customers in improving it.
So given where we are on the standardization side, how much vendor lock-in is involved on any side of the SGAI decision?
Yeah, that's a question we often get, and that's the question you of course need to answer. And I would actually turn that around a little bit, because what we have been seeing, and this is from doing it in production, if you want to unlock the power of a system like this, the player becomes a crucial component in the orchestration. You can standardize each of the interfaces, but to have it truly work optimized together, create a seamless experience, create those new ad formats with nice animations in between, with having the right singles in there, the player is so crucial in that a lot starts there. And that's also why today we see server-guided ad insertion as one system behaving together with the different components out there, with, for example, pre-integration we have with Google or with any in the future fast compliant ad server that is out there. And also from a singling front, integrating on the standard triggers that are existing today in the industry is obvious. But bringing them in a way that the player can really get to that experience, that is something that we've also right now taken in our own hands to make sure that we can create this. But we're actually also on a journey with our customers. So we're listening to their needs and we're building together with them. So if our customers tomorrow want to see the system in a different way, look at it or swap out certain parts of it, that's definitely possible. But I do want to always start from the fact the orchestration element that sits on the player side is very crucial here. So that's a key component, and that naturally integrates with the way you single, what you put in there, and how you integrate or pre-prepare the break. I think that's my answer today. And I also think I want to highlight is standardization is getting there. But if you really truly want to unlock all the potential, there are a lot of learnings in here, which we've already had and that already go beyond where standardization is going to today.
Yeah, I think in general, players don't get the credit they deserve for their role in quality of experience and overall orchestration. We take it for granted because we press play and everything works, but that's all the customer really touches. And even if the other components work well, if the player isn't working, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. And then even on top of that, the player gets so many crazy combinations thrown at it, and it always needs to make sure that it handles those correctly. Like you throw at it captions in 6 or 7 different formats, you throw at it different streaming formats, which you then sometimes even mix and match. You assume that it will easily just switch from one codec to another codec when you want to insert an ad on a smart TV or on some new operating system that has been developed. So there's a lot of complexity that comes together there. And then certainly if you want to innovate on a topic like server-guided ad insertion, then you do need to make sure that all of that fits seamlessly together. And we also don't want to bring that complexity to our customers today, because if our customers need to worry about the use cases on how is server-guided ad insertion going to work, if I come back into a break, when I was backgrounded, or when I got a phone call and the user gets back into the experience, there are so many complex aspects to it that you really want to offer a simple experience and a simple way of integrating, which brings most of the key value here.
When did you get this list? What are we talking about in terms of timescale here?
I recently had to make the history of the customer where we built this with, and I think that was early 2024, I think something. And the crazy thing, or maybe it was late 2023, but I think it was early 2024. And the crazy thing is actually that 4 months later we already went into production on the web platform, and that also is a bit typical for the way we work and develop here. You very quickly try it out in a stable and in a quality way, but you take the learnings, you improve and you iterate on that. So it's not that long ago if you look back at it, but it has been such a journey that it, for me at least, does seem like an eternity away.
So what are the top X things that are coming?
The top X that are coming from the viewers today, from the customer?
No, from the product. What do we see in the product the next time we talk about this in 6 to 12 months?
What you'll see in the product going forward is certainly triggered by customer demand and what our customers need and what they are asking us. What you'll see coming is hybrid workflows. So where we are preferring SGAI and doing SGAI where it's possible, but we will also adjust to the capabilities. Some platforms are today on SGAI not fully developed or not fully there yet, or not suited or not the right use case, so that we are able to support the hybrid workflow. We will select the right technology at the right time. So when SSAI is more applicable, then we will select SSAI, which is the minority of the cases. Otherwise, we will go to SGAI and unlock the full potential that is there on a personalization, scalability front. I think what else you will see in the product is definitely the ad formats that will be further developed, further extended from where they are today. I think we already spoke about the fast compliant ad servers. That also definitely something that will further develop with the customers that we're working with today. And I think the key thing that I want to highlight is this is going to become super, super simple. This is going to become so simple that you just give your origin URL to us and you get the configuration for your player, and you're actually monetizing your stream with 3 or 4 clicks, and you're able to insert breaks on your stream with a simple API call. So I think that is the thing that I'm looking forward to, because making a super complex thing, maybe that's a bit over the top, but making a complex thing super simple for the customers, that's something that I'm really excited about to almost have finished in our pipeline.
Sounds like most of the implementation work is just adjusting to the additional features that you provide. I mean, personalization's hard, right? I mean, you need a lot of data. Customized ad formats are, to leverage those and they'll leverage the experiences you talked about. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's not only a lot of work to build it, which I believe we've done a lot with. So that the capabilities are here, and we're even proving that with the numbers that are also in the slide set. But it's also making sure that all of the inventory gets there. I can present a very nice L shape, but if there are no advertisers that have the L shape available, and that's luckily something that is picking up, but that's also work that needs to happen, and that's also something that our team is engaging on in working with the partners and with advertisers, in making sure that this inventory and all the requirements or all the needs that fully unlock the potential, that also is happening. So we're actually working on different fronts, and I think from a technology front, a lot of the enablers are already there, and will further unlock the potential, further grow the more personalized experiences when more and more ads become available to that. More and more of the ads will be suited for the different formats that we're presenting here. So I really think we're only just at the doorstep, and certainly if it then becomes super simple to use, then it becomes a very tempting story, I would think.
Well, certainly if you can boost, revenue by 76%, you're worth a lot of effort. So,
and that's truly sometimes that we think with the engineers in the office, like, are these numbers real? How did we do that? And then you start looking into it, and you say, yeah, look, actually all of the things that we were talking about, it's less wasteful, it's just in time, it's personalized, etc. yeah, it proves out. So pretty cool to see, but also still a lot of work and still a lot of potential that we need to further develop.
Yeah, I won't tell your bosses you were surprised it actually worked.
Well, that's typically in innovation that you have a crazy idea and then you think, oh, this really works. And then you start to iterate on it. So I'm actually looking forward to tomorrow in the office where we have another hackathon and where we're going to see what AI can do for us in streaming. So on one end, I'm already bracing for what is going to come out because that might be some other crazy new idea that we can do.
Okay. Well, let's leave it there, Michelle. Listen, thanks for taking the time today. This was a lot of fun and I learned a lot.
Okay, thanks for inviting me, Jan, and thanks for the chat today. I really enjoyed it.